that this House notes the incident on March the 25th, 2025 in Brisbane, Queensland, where Canadian activist Mr. Chris Elston, known as Billboard Chris, was forcibly removed from a public street by police after peacefully engaging in conversations about his opposition to medical treatments for gender dysphoria in children. That Mr. Elston reports he was standing quietly in a public square while wearing a sign which read, quote, "Children cannot consent to puberty blockers." On the front and on the back, it defined a dad as a male human who protects his children from gender ideology. And B, Mr. Elston has done this for 4.5 years globally, discussing his belief that, quote, "vulnerable children are being maimed, sterilised and turned into lifelong pharmaceutical patients," end quote, when a bylaw officer falsely claimed he was obstructing public movement, issuing him an $806 fine, followed by police intervention and physical removal without formal arrest or charges after he refused to move. C, that Mr. Elston contends this action reflects a, quote, "zealous abuse of power by those in authority," suggesting police declined to press charges to avoid an international incident, and that he refused to comply to maintain his integrity and peacefully spreading his message rooted in his broader beliefs about gender ideology and child welfare. 2, that this House acknowledges Mr. Elston's core beliefs and arguments which are grounded in scientific evidence, including A, that gender dysphoria in children resolves naturally, supported by a 2021 study titled "A Follow-up Study of Boys with Gender Identity Disorder," reporting an 88% desistance rate, suggesting puberty often resolves dysphoria without medical intervention. B, that puberty blockers lack evidence of mental health benefits, backed by a 2022 study entitled "The Tavistock Experiment with Puberty Blockers," finding no significant psychological improvement, and the internationally recognised Cass review in 2024 that noted weak evidence for blockers' efficacy challenging their widespread use. D, that puberty blockers and hormones cause harm, evidenced by a 2020 study titled "Growing Pains, the Problems with Puberty Suppression," highlighting risks like bone density loss and sterility. E, that gender-affirming care doesn't reduce suicide risk, reported by a 2022 study, "Suicide by Clinic-Referred Transgender Adolescents," showing low suicide rates among referred youth regardless of treatment, and the Cass review finding no robust link between blockers and suicide prevention. F, that Mr. Ellison argues these studies demonstrate that medical interventions for gender dysphoria in minors are experimental, harmful and unnecessary, forming the basis of his public advocacy and his refusal to yield to authority in Brisbane in order to cease his peaceful expression. G, that this House recognises the fundamental importance of free speech as a cornerstone of a democratic society, including the right to express controversial views, such as those supported by the cited research, in public spaces without undue interference or intimidation by authorities. 3, that this House expresses concern over the use of force by Queensland Police against an individual exercising peaceful expression, especially when no charges were laid, raising questions about the proportionality and legality of such actions under Queensland law, including the Peaceful Assembly Act 1992. A, that this House calls on the Queensland Government to review the conduct of the bylaw officer and police involved in this incident, including the accuracy of claims of obstruction and the decision to use force rather than de-escalation in light of Mr. Elston's right to discuss evidence-based concerns. And 4, that this House acknowledges Mr. Elston's ongoing legal challenge against Australia's e-Safety Commissioner, set for review in the Administrative Appeals Tribunal in late March 2025, as a broader test of free speech protections in Australia, and calls for transparency and fairness in its adjudication, given its relevance to his advocacy and the Brisbane incident.